You need this to be a part of your self-care routine, especially if you want your self-care practice to be more effective. So join me today as I take you through some reasons as to why stillness needs to be a part of your self-care practice, and your self-care practice may be incomplete without it. So in this session, I will be discussing why in an era of chatter and clatter, it is even more important to find ways to make space for stillness in our lives. And if you like what I have to say, make sure that you sign up for the free upcoming Mindful Mornings Challenge, which is starting on Monday, the 22nd of March, using the link below. So let's get started, shall we? So the thing is, in an era where we are inundated by noise, right? And it may not be all of it may not be noise, but there's a lot of chatter, there's a lot of clatter, whether it's from your phone, it's from the car honking across the road, whether it's from your some other gadget, maybe your desktop, some notification. If you're at the airport, it's the speakers, system announcements that are constantly being made, right? So you're surrounded by noise all the time, and what happens as a result of that, whether you realize it or not, is that it adds to your stress. And it's no wonder that a lot of people feel overwhelmed by the sheer amount of, or the volume of noise, by the volume of notifications, the distractions that are constantly bombarding them throughout the day, right? And we may or may not be aware of this, so we end up doing nothing about it. But once we become aware of how it adversely impacts our productivity, our ability to focus, and in the long run our health, we can actually start doing something about it, right? And I'll discuss 3 ways that you can sort of create stillness in your life. But before that, what I wanted to say is that stillness is actually an antidote or a solution to a hyper-connected world, a world filled with all kinds of notifications, all kinds of alarms. It's from the minute you wake up in the morning to your alarm, right? And it's sort of that blaring noise that might wake you up in the morning. It's good if you're using something which is more calming and peaceful, and there are many different ways of doing that. But for many of us, we are used to waking up with that blaring noise, waking us up instantly from deep sleep. That's not really a very healthy way of waking up in the morning. And in an sort of the way to find more peace, more meaning and contentment is through having some practice of stillness, right? And it can be an informal practice, it can be a formal practice, it can be inside your house, it can be in nature, and it can be all of what I'm about to share. The more important thing is to be aware of this need to have and find stillness in your life, right? And I'll give you some examples from my own life. What I find is that mornings and evenings before sleep are the best times to find stillness in my life, right? And I think mornings are even better, because if you can wake up maybe 10-15 minutes, maybe half an hour, maybe even an hour before the rest of your world wakes up, you get a lot of time to yourself, right? Whether it's to reflect, whether it's to write, whether it's to meditate, breathe, simply be, right? And I think a lot of us have forgotten how to be a human being. We are doing so much all the time, right? We are going here, doing that, doing this, that we are constantly sort of being, instead of being a human being, we are human doings. And I want you to shift from that, right? Just simply be. Allow that to happen. Make space for that to happen in your life and see what unfolds for you. And as I mentioned, one of the best times to do that is your morning. And I also find that even the time before you go to bed, if you can create a ritual out of that, have a kind of a bedtime ritual, that can also be another time for you to find some stillness. And just keep in mind that you don't need to take out a huge amount of time for doing that either. just 5 to 10 minutes, and if you can find more time, nothing like it, in your day to find some kind of stillness can really help. So you can switch off your phones, where you can switch off your gadgets. You can simply be, you can enjoy maybe your company that is right in front of you. You can enjoy your own company, right? So just finding ways to have access to the stillness and make space for it, make time for it, right? Prioritize it, because it will not going to, it's not going to happen, or the chances are very minimal that it's going to happen on its own. You will have to plan for stillness in your life, and you will have to make it a priority, right? So it typically does not happen accidentally, and I'm pretty sure that you would be aware of this. So moving again, so mornings, making it one of the best times to practice stillness, right? And again, finding what works for you. So the three ways that you can actually find stillness in your life are, the first one is limit your inputs, right? This is something that I've done a while ago. I have, and I'll give you some practical examples as how you can do that. I have seen a huge amount of difference just by limiting the inputs that I get on a daily basis. And it can be, and your phone is a prime example of that, right? So there are all kinds of notifications and alerts which are inbuilt in your phone. So for example, your social media notifications, of course your voice calls, your text messages. Now what I have realized is that apart from the voice calls, the incoming calls and the text messages, etc., I don't really need all the other notifications. And in fact, I have been doing absolutely fine without them for the last couple of years. And it's given me a lot of peace, in my life, just by switching off all notifications. So I don't have any notifications for any kind of emails or any social media or anything on my phone, right? Just the text messages and the voice calls. And believe me, nothing happens, right? Life doesn't come to an end. And of course, if work is something that you need to deal with, and because of that, if you're not able to do this, you can find your own way. You can find a way to maybe check your emails every hour on the hour, right, rather than every instant. You can find a way to check whatever notifications that are coming in, maybe again every hour on the hour rather than every second of every day. So there are ways to work around it. But again, for most of us, unless we are probably working in a situation where we need to respond immediately, which is for which would be for emergency responders. For the rest of us, honestly, we can do without such notifications. So limiting your inputs, especially on your phone, I think is one of the best things that you can do for yourself. So that's the first way of carving out some stillness in your life. The second way would be to cultivate silence, right? It's easier said than done. And as I mentioned when I started this session, that in the world of clatter and chatter, it is really hard to find that kind of silence. So you will need to find ways to cultivate silence, right? So because it's only when you are making space for this kind of silence that you can access your inner wisdom, right? There is this inner guidance system which is there deep within you. It's your intuition, you can call it whatever you want, but most of us don't have access to it, right? Most of us have not realized that we need to take out time and make space for it. And as I mentioned, that you need to make time for that. It's not going to happen accidentally. So cultivating silence every day, even if it's just for a few minutes, and you can do it first thing in the morning, again when you wake up, you can do it a few more times during a day, and maybe just before going to bed. But cultivating a silence is an important part of finding stillness, right? And you can find your way of doing that. And again, for me, morning time works best because I can wake up half an hour before my entire family wakes up. And I find that either doing a bit of meditation, or maybe just I do some journaling I don't do everything every day, but I definitely do some kind of writing or journaling or self-reflection, right? You have to find what works for you. And just to make space for that, just to maybe just simply be, really helps me to ground myself and start the day on the right note. So the first way was to limit your inputs, the second was to cultivate silence, and the third is to build a routine, right? I've been talking about routines. If you've been seeing my sort of sessions earlier, I have talked about different kinds of routines also, especially where it relates to self-care practices, because I think that having some kind of routine frees you up from something. I mean, one of the thing that I know many of us struggle with, which is decision fatigue, right? So having some kind of routine in place frees us up, right? Not the other way around, because I think a lot of us believe that having a kind of routine can slow us down, can make us more inflexible, etc. That's not true. And I'll give you an example. If you can have some kind of routine at night before going to bed, where you decide what to wear next day morning, what to make for breakfast the next morning, what your kids are going to eat, maybe if you can plan your lunch also, small things, what you're going to wear to when you go for your workout, all these things, if you can decide the night before and keep it ready. So I'll give you my example. The night before, before I go to bed, I take out my workout clothes. If I'm working out the next day, I keep it on my chair where I can see it. I take out my work clothes. I decide what's there on the menu, at least for breakfast, right? I keep my journal if I'm writing the next day. I also keep my online workout ready with the link on my on my desktop, so that I can just switch it on and click on it and do my online workout. So keeping as many things ready, it's in having a routine, because I know these are the things I'm going to do the next morning, really helps. It helps me to not start the day with having to decide 20 things, right? So, and similarly in the morning, if you have some kind of routine where you, maybe when you wake up, you brush your teeth, after that you meditate, and after that you have a cup of tea, and after that, so just writing that down and making and knowing what you're going to do after each activity can really free you up, right? So again, having a kind of routine helps. So the first way that I shared with you that you can cultivate stillness in your life and plan for it is to limit your inputs, which means that switching off your your all your alerts and notifications, starting with your alarm clock, maybe learning how to get up without one, because if you wake up at the same time every day, and if you go to bed at the same time, you will pretty soon be able to wake up without an alarm clock, right? So that's the first way. The second way is to cultivate silence. That means that you have to take out time from your busy schedule and find pockets of silence, and maybe schedule them into your build them into your calendar, starting with your morning. The third way is to build a routine, right? And having rituals in place. So whether it's an evening ritual, whether it's a morning ritual, is extremely effective, right? And all these, when you put together, they can build you up for success, right? They can build you up for a life that is more grounded, more peaceful, more meaningful, without feeling like you're running around like a headless chicken starting from the first thing in the morning. And in fact, to so this is what I have to sort of summarize. If I had to summarize today's session, this is what I have to share, that in today's world where many of us feel overwhelmed, many of us are surrounded, distracted, sort of not able to focus, finding and making space and making time for stillness, making it a priority is an important part of your self-care practice, and your self-care will be incomplete without it. So if you like what I have to say, make sure that you sign up for the Mindful Mornings Challenge, which is starting on the 22nd of March 2021. It will give you a glimpse as to how you can do what I just said. It's like short actionable steps every morning where you can take out a bit of time to find ways to incorporate stillness, to be more mindful. So start paying more attention to your life, starting from your morning, which has a sort of effect throughout the rest of your day, and of course the rest of your life. So do share in the comment below one takeaway that you have from this session. I would love to hear from you.